Ben Shephard, the face millions of Britons wake up to every morning. The charming, ever-smiling host of Good Morning Britain and Tipping Point, known for his warmth, wit, and the kind of kindness that feels increasingly rare in the world of television. But behind that reassuring smile, there's been a story that very few people have ever heard. A story not about fame or fortune or ratings, but about love and the quiet, unseen struggles that even the most perfect-looking marriages can face. Recently, Ben opened up in a way that left his fans speechless, and what he revealed about his relationship with his wife, Annie Shephard, has moved millions to tears. This isn't just a story about one of Britain's most beloved presenters. It's a story about rediscovering what truly matters when the cameras stop rolling. The man everyone thinks they know. For decades, Ben Shephard has been the nation's dependable morning companion, the man who makes us smile even when the headlines don't. He's interviewed world leaders, comforted heartbroken guests, and cheered on contestants as silver tokens drop on Tipping Point. To the public, Ben's life looked picture perfect. A thriving career, a loving marriage, 2 wonderful sons, a beautiful home in southwest London. But according to Ben, that perfect picture was only half the truth. In a rare and deeply emotional interview, Ben admitted that for a long time he was losing himself, and he didn't even realize it until it almost cost him the one person who had been by his side through everything, Annie. The woman behind the smile. Annie Shephard has always preferred to stay out of the spotlight. Unlike many celebrity partners, she never sought fame, only peace, family, and purpose. She and Ben met long before he was a television star, before the bright lights and the early morning alarms. Back then, they were just 2 young people navigating life together, holding on to big dreams and small moments. Ben has often said that Annie was his constant, the quiet voice of reason, the grounding presence when fame began to shift the world around him. But as his career took off, from GMTV to the X Factor, Goals on Sunday, and then Tipping Point, something subtle began to change. He described it this way: "You start out wanting to make your family proud, but somewhere along the line, you get so busy trying to make everyone else happy, you forget to check whether you're still connected to the people who matter most." The pressure that no one saw coming. Behind the polished on-screen laughter, Ben was struggling. Early call times, long production days, charity commitments, late-night event hosting, and endless public appearances that made his calendar look more like a battlefield than a balance. He confessed that during one particularly intense stretch, when he was simultaneously filming Tipping Point, covering Good Morning Britain, and doing weekend football work, he was barely sleeping 3 hours a night. And that exhaustion began to spill over into his home life. Annie, who had always been patient, began to notice a distance that words couldn't quite bridge. Ben would come home after a long day, drained and distracted. He'd collapse on the sofa, half listening, his mind still running through scripts and schedules. There wasn't an argument or a single dramatic moment, just a quiet drift, the kind that sneaks up on you when you're not looking. Ben said something in that interview that struck every viewer straight in the heart. He said, "I didn't even realize how much I was missing until I looked up one evening and saw Annie across the table. She was talking about our boys, about her day, and I realized I hadn't really heard her in months." The night everything changed. According to Ben, the turning point came on what he described as the hardest night of their marriage. It wasn't about anger, it was about honesty. He had returned home late once again, exhausted, emotionally drained, and already half asleep in his mind. Annie was waiting, not with confrontation, but with quiet sadness. She asked him one simple question: "Ben, when was the last time we actually laughed together?" He froze, because he couldn't remember. That single question broke something open inside him. For the first time in years, the charming, unshakable TV presenter who always had the right words had none. Ben said, "That night I realized that I had become a guest in my own marriage. I was showing up, but I wasn't present." He admitted that after Annie went to bed, he sat downstairs for hours. No phone, no television, just silence. And in that silence, he began to understand the cost of success when it's not balanced with the things that truly matter. Part 5. A Private Promise. The next morning, Ben switched off his alarm and skipped work. Instead, he made breakfast for Annie and the boys. They sat together for hours, no schedules, no phones, no interruptions, just conversation. It was, as Ben described, the simplest morning, but it felt like breathing again. That morning marked the start of what he now calls their reset. He and Annie made a pact, a private promise to put real life ahead of televised life, to say no more often, to make space for stillness, to rediscover the laughter that first brought them together. Ben admitted it wasn't easy. He had to step back from certain projects, say no to lucrative offers, and even rework his filming schedule. But what they gained, he said, was priceless. Learning to love again slowly. As weeks turned into months, Ben began to rebuild his connection with Annie, not through grand gestures, but through quiet consistency. Morning walks, cooking dinner together, attending their son's rugby matches without checking his phone, and most importantly, listening. He described Annie as his mirror, the one who reminds him who he really is when fame tries to blur the reflection. In an interview, Annie was asked what changed most after that difficult chapter. Her answer was simple. He stopped being Ben Shephard, the presenter, and went back to being just Ben. She said they began finding joy again in small, ordinary things, gardening together on weekends, laughing over burnt toast, and sitting up late talking about the old days before fame. And the public began to notice something too. Ben seemed more grounded, more present. His interviews carried a softness that only comes from real vulnerability. The beauty of imperfection. Ben often talks now about imperfection, how it's the thing that keeps love real. When you're in the public eye, people assume you've got it all figured out. But the truth is, the best marriages aren't perfect, they're honest. He shared that there were times when he and Annie disagreed deeply about work, about balance, about how much was too much. But he says that's what love is meant to do, stretch you without breaking you. For Ben, that understanding changed everything. He began turning down high-profile events in favor of family time. He made it a rule never to miss Sunday dinners, no matter how hectic his week had been. And perhaps most touchingly, he now takes Annie along to certain filming trips, not for publicity, but for shared experience. He once said, "At this stage in life, I don't need more applause. I just need more moments with the people who make it all worthwhile." A marriage redefined. Years from that emotional confession, Ben and Annie's relationship has become an example of grace and resilience. Fans who followed his journey have noticed how his eyes light up whenever he mentions her name. During interviews, when asked about Annie, his tone changes, gentle, grateful, protective. He calls her his quiet hero, the person who stood beside him not just through the good days, but through the days when he was a shadow of himself. Annie, meanwhile, continues to live privately, grounded and focused on family life. Friends close to them say the couple is now happier than ever, not because life is perfect, but because they've learned how to navigate its imperfections together. The message Ben wanted to share. When asked what advice he would give to others who might be facing similar struggles, he didn't hesitate. He said, "Don't wait for a breaking point to realize what really matters. Don't wait for silence to notice the person sitting across the table." He spoke about the importance of pausing, truly pausing in a world that glorifies being busy. He said, "We think we're living when we're rushing, but often we're just surviving. I had to learn to slow down to love better." Those words, spoken with quiet honesty, have stayed with fans ever since.
They remind us that even in the glamorous world of television, the real battles and the real beauty happen far away from the cameras. Where do they stand today? Today, Ben and Annie's love story stands as one of quiet triumph. They've faced storms, yes, but they've also built shelter. Ben continues to charm viewers every morning with his warmth, but those closest to him say the biggest change is not on screen, it's in the way he lives his off-screen moments. Annie once said, "We're not perfect. We've just learned to choose each other, every day, even on the hard days." And perhaps that's the secret, not to chase perfection, but presence. Not to seek applause, but peace. The message that touched millions. After his emotional confession aired, fans flooded social media with messages of support. Many said Ben's honesty gave them courage to look